My name is Benjamin Vedrenne-Cloquet. I'm a co-founder of EdTech Europe. I'm going to talk briefly about a few trends in EdTech and then showcase what I would call two of our EdTech European champions. Just to start with a bit of a personal story, I gave up a job in media 3 years ago to start a job in or venture in education. I didn't know anything about education 3 years ago, but I was convinced about three things. One was that education is big and largely under-innovated, and that has been under-innovated for centuries. Two, that education, as any content industry, will be disrupted by digital in exactly the same way music, gaming, publishing, TV have been disrupted with the same challenges and the same opportunities. And three, I had the conviction that there was a need for a European organization that would connect European leaders of education technology, that would attract talent, attract investment, and support startups and companies that are the next European EdTech champions. What I'm going to do now is to give you a few highlights of EdTech in Europe, talk a little bit about our conference, and also showcase two of the winners of our innovation showcase last year. So I mentioned that innovation is big. It's actually very big. And if you put things in perspective, it's 3 times bigger than the global media and entertainment industry, and it's much bigger than the global software industry. By comparison, the music industry is 100 times smaller than the global education industry. If we had to scale this stream, this edu track here at Slush in proportion of the investment and the size of the market, it will be 100 times bigger than the music track. So that's good news, I guess, for innovators in education. The second highlight is that we are at the very beginning of the digital transition in education. If you look, in average, content industries have 35% of their spend in digital. That includes music, publishing, gaming, videos. Education, it's 3%. What it means is that there is a huge potential of growth, huge headroom for growth. How long might it take? Maybe 10 years, maybe 5 years, we don't know, but the growth opportunity is there. So that's the good news. The bad news is the ecosystem in Europe has probably more than 3,000 e-learning companies. Most of them are under scale and under-resourced. And that's a quote from a panelist in one of the conferences who said, when I look at EdTech startups here, I see them as mom-and-pop restaurants, and I wonder if they can cater an event. That means they can't really scale. And the reason why they can't scale is because distribution in education is very difficult. Trying to convince schools, governments, institutions to switch to new technologies, it's a little bit like trying to turn tweed jackets into hoodies. That's not a job that you can do overnight. It takes some time. So that's the first bad news. And the second bad news is that when you look at the investment that is done in the ecosystem, Europe is lagging behind in a very, very, very bad way. It's 1/10 of US investments. It's 1/5 of Asian investments. And when I look at this, I'm very upset, because not only European investors are missing out on an opportunity, but it also means that we're under-investing in the future of our nations, the future of our people, future of our skill set, and that 20 years from now. And so, in some extent, some things needed to be done to fix this, and that's why we created EdTech Europe. And I just want to give you another insight. It took 5 years for Coursera, one of the largest MOOC, to catch up on 800 years of history of 2 of the most popular education brands in Europe, Oxford and Cambridge. Some people are saying MOOCs are a fad, it's not going to last, but actually we've seen that in other industries, and here is another example. So, if tomorrow we want the YouTube of education, the Netflix of education, the iTunes of education, the Spotify of education to be European, we need to do something about it. And what I've done with other co-founders is to create EdTech Europe, where we connect the global EdTech community. There are industry experts, innovators, investors, educators, and we have probably a network of 320 CEOs and investors that are meeting once a year in London to discuss trends, attract talent, discuss investment opportunities, and find who are the next education champion in European landscape. We have an award called the EdTech 20 Startup Awards. We support their growth. We also, and that's the reason why they have Texan hats, is because we send them in the US to one of the largest education conferences called South by Southwest. And I'm very pleased to welcome now two of the winners of EdTech Europe last year. And their companies, one is called the Student Room, which is the largest student community in the UK and probably in Europe. And you know how community are important in digital education. And the second one is a math adaptive learning company that is at the forefront of adaptive learning, and it's called Bettermarks. So just before I hand over to the two CEOs, I just want to remind you that our conference is on June 18, 2015, that there is a special promotion code for Slush, and I just want you to remember that education is big, there is some talent in EdTech entrepreneurs, and we're going to miss out if we don't do anything about it. So please support the EdTech ecosystem and join EdTech Europe, and also join the EduTrack at Slush. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that. My name is Jason Gill. I'm the CEO of the Student Room. That's the studentroom.com. And I have the privilege of leading this talented bunch that are just about to pop up on your screen, hopefully. Can I have some help with the clicker? 2 seconds. Shall I tap dance? Well, I lead a talented bunch down in Brighton, which is on the south coast of the UK. That one. Which button do I press?
Try this one. The green one.
The green one? There we go. So there they are. They're not always on a bouncy castle, but they are a talented bunch, and we are growing quickly. The Student Room, basically since 2003, we've been spending our time nurturing the online community, and with it, building tools and resources that help students all the way through their educational journey. Today, we're at 2.5 million members with something like over 60 million visits a year coming through to our 3 sites. So we have really good scale. And we make money. We generate revenues through B2B activity, through companies that look to market to the youth sector. And also over the last few years, we've been driving up our subscription business with students subscribing to the learning tools and resources that we provide. And we're really, really passionate about learning, and we continue to focus on learning because I think it's hugely important. And there are some big gaps out there in the market that we're looking to serve. If you cast your mind back very quickly to life as a student, you can nod along here. You can break it down into 3 key areas. You know, being a student is a lot of fun. The new relationships form, the parties, all the fun that goes with that. It's bloody hard work. There's lots of work thrown at you at that key stage. The exams, the revision, and it's challenging. Now, some of those challenges are there and should be there because they're good from a developmental perspective, but also sometimes there are challenges there, especially around information, where students don't always get access to information at the point in which they need it to make critical decisions, so it can be challenging. And when you focus in on the life as a student, you know, when we really looked at it, it was pretty clear to us that students that use the Student Room all go on slightly different paths. There isn't one typical path that a student will make between the ages of 14 and 24. And along the way between 14 and 24, they've got lots of questions and challenges, some of them around the revision, education specifically, questions around maths homework or how do I do simultaneous equations, through to questions around study help, career choices around what path should I take, through to specific educational choice questions around which exams should I take at GCSE stage, specifically in the UK for a second, and how they connect up with A-level choices, and how that then pushes them into the degree that they want to do. And often, so often, those points of information aren't there for students at the right time, so those questions come up. And also, which university should I go to is also a big question that students have along the way. And also alongside that, questions around life in general, sometimes fairly trivial, you might think, you know, in terms of the consumer choices and decisions around which laptop to use or mobile to use, through to some really important issues around, you know, life in general, you know, parents breaking up, splitting up my boyfriend or my girlfriend. And, you know, again, being able to connect with other peers around those issues can help support you along the educational journey. So we see that day in, day out. And the student room, to kind of position exactly how we position ourselves here, we sit in the middle of three very clear areas of student need. Student pathways, so anything to do with educational career choice, study help, and also life around learning. And we feel like we're really uniquely positioned to connect all three of those markets up. We're doing pretty well. So we've been going now for about 12 years. We've doubled in size over the last 3 years. If we focus very quickly on the UK market, in the UK market, there are 4.3 million students between the ages of 14 and 24. We get 3.3 million of those students through the door every year, and we have 1.8 million of them registered between the ages of 14 and 24. So we feel like we've got a really good market size there, market share in that market, but we also have international visitors. Around 25% of our traffic comes from outside of the UK, and our focus is on how we develop that market as well. And as I touched on earlier on, our revenue story over the last 5 or 6 years has been a solid one, and we continue to grow, and the plan is to keep doing that. So just finally, where next? I'm hell-bent, along with the team on the Bouncy Castle, to make the student room the best loved, most widely used and known site and brand in our chosen markets, and we'll continue to keep building out in these 3 areas by offering free and paid for resources and continuing to build the community. But we're really excited about what we're doing and being part of the EdTech community that the EdTech Europe guys have helped us bring into, so we're really excited about the future, and it's great to be here. I'd like to pass over.
Hello, everybody. At Bettermarks, we want to set the standard for the next generation of teaching and learning material for math. And it took us, with a team of 70 people, 5 years to build that sophisticated adaptive courseware. And the impact for students is that it really makes learning easier, and they can learn at their own pace. And for the teacher in developed countries, they have the ability to manage diversity in the classroom. And for developing countries, Bettermarks is bringing the didactical knowledge into the classroom, even if the teachers didn't have an education on that. In 2013, January, we won a tender, an international tender by the government of Uruguay, and that was co-financed by the Inter-American Development Bank. And I want to give you a few images from our work in Uruguay. Sound?
We have achieved several things. First, the kids' motivation and interest in math has significantly increased. They now understand that mistakes are something natural, and they repeat exercises until they get them right. The results in tests and evaluations have improved. And finally, kids who previously did not do their work have now started to do it. That's priceless.
So, what does it take for an adaptive courseware to lift the engagement of the students and to lift the knowledge, math knowledge, on a broad scale? On one hand, it's the completeness of content. Of course, we have to cover the curriculum of the various countries. But diversity of exercises is a very important point, because we want to teach students to build up problem-solving capabilities instead of just drilling routines for recurring exercises. And to learn from mistakes, of course, it's important to be able to make mistakes. Think of a student learning to construct a right-angled triangle, but just answering questions which are multiple-choice style. The best interaction tool would be a sheet of paper, and Bettermarks is delivering those with the flexibility to make mistakes. Plus, Bettermarks is capturing the input of the student and giving didactically relevant input to every didactically relevant feedback to any input of the student. Additionally, to a detailed explanation at every exercise step. There are already 1 million exercises per week answered and solved by students with better marks. And 200,000 of those have a mistake, a misconceptional thinking by the student. And whenever a student is making a mistake, better marks is firing his feedback and help, and then the student has a second chance. And guess what the correctness grade at the second try is? It's 70%. Something is happening in between when students learn from making mistakes. So one leg we are standing on is an adaptive courseware, which is very sophisticated. The second leg we are relying on is our ability to integrate with partners. Every education market needs a lot of local expertise. And with that expertise and our very flexible platform, we are able to build a localized version of better marks in a joint approach with a partner within half a year. So a partner with a strong position within his own education system can go to market with a perfect product for that within half a year and hardly any investment risk connected to that. So where have we gotten from January 2013? We are already starting to build localized versions with partners and are ready to roll out in Mexico, Chile, the Netherlands, in Spain. We are in talks about partnering in other countries in Europe and Latin America. And it looks like that our vision of lifting the math knowledge for students worldwide is taking off. Thank you very much.